Hi there my friends, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is something a little bit different. I've already created a full-length video of how I created this fox in pastels, but what I thought I'd do is take a little bit of the unedited video so you get a little bit more of an in-depth look at how I create realistic looking eyes in pastels. I will link the other video, the full-length video, in the description below in case you want to take a look at the rest of the fox and how I created him. So all I used for the eyes is pastel pencils. No soft pastels were involved in this part of the project. So I tend to go on with the lightest, brightest colours first. Pastels are, well, they look opaque, but they're actually not. They're semi-opaque. So when adding colours over bright colours, the bright colours do tend to shine through as long as the layering is quite light. Just light-handed, very thin layers, and just let that initial brightness shine through. So that's how I go about creating the depth in the eyes. So I'm going on with different brands of pencils. Sometimes I reach for a brand because of its softness. Sometimes I reach for a brand just for a certain colour. So I do mix and match them. I use Caran d'Ache pastel pencils, Pitt pastel pencils, Derwent pastel pencils, Cretacolor, Daler Rowney, Faber-Castell. The Carbothello ones are really nice too. So a mixture of different brands for different purposes. So as you can see here, I've got some of the bright on to begin with, just so I can layer over and let that bright, vivid colour show through. And then I'm just layering up, and you're always remembering that the eye itself is an orb. So I like to go quite deep with the colours towards the edges of the eye to give it that roundness, almost like it's going to be popping off the page. That's what I want it to look like. Going in with some darks there just around the edges, and it's really hard to not lose your guidelines when you're working in an opaque or a semi-opaque medium. So as you can see there, I'm just going around just so I don't lose the shape of the eye, else I'd have to sketch that back in with a darker pastel pencil. So creating some darks around the edges, and just a light hand. It looks like I'm pressing, but I'm not. I'm just letting the paper pick up the pigment as I go. And the paper I worked this project on is the Clairefontaine pastel matte paper. It's got a feeling like cork, so you'd think straight away if you felt it, well, it's not got much tooth, it's not going to hold very many layers. Well, in actual fact, the makeup of this paper is absolutely amazing. I've never ran out of tooth. So in other words, I've never come to a point when using pastels on Clairefontaine pastel matte paper that I felt the paper couldn't take any more. So that's one advantage. Another advantage is I never get any pastel drop. I don't have to use a fixative or anything like that. Even when I'm using soft pastels for larger areas, I've never had any problems with it at all. Now the colour of paper I'm working on at the moment is a mid-grey, and the reason I choose to work on a mid-tone is that I can go lighter and I can go darker. I know some people like to work on the white paper, the white Clairefontaine pastel matte paper, but the trouble is you can never go whiter or lighter than white. So it can sort of make your, how you look for different colours, different tones, different contrasts and things, it can make that a little bit more difficult if you're working on white paper or black paper. So I choose a mid-tone. So just going on with some reds there. And as you can see, I've put the finished piece to the top left hand corner using a blending stump. That's to push the pigment into the tooth of the paper whilst also blending the colours together. but as you can see on the left of the eye, that vibrant yellowy orange is still showing through, even though I'm applying layers on top. And I can't express enough how much care you need to take by making your layers light. You don't want to put a big splodge of colour on top of anything that you've already done, because what you've already done will just be covered up. So a light hand, light layers, let them blend together. Now, if you're working with a limited amount of pencils or a limited amount of soft pastels, and there's a colour that you haven't got that you want, then you can either mix it on the paper by putting the two colours together and blending them gently with a paper stump, or you could get a piece of, and this is something I occasionally do, get a piece of printer paper or cartridge paper to one side, blend your colours on there, and then lift them up with a soft tool or a small sponge and apply them to your project that way. A soft tool is simply, it looks like a plastic palette knife. They have little soft foam covers that go on the end, and I'll link those in the description as well. So all the supplies I'm using I'll pop in the description, as well as the other video for the long, it's a long video of the actual fox project, and this portion of the eyes is in that video, but it's not so in depth. Some of it is edited out. So this video is running at about 12 minutes or just under, and this actual footage is sped up to 400. So obviously eyes take a while, but they are the most enjoyable part of a painting for me, because they are the part of a painting the viewer immediately looks at, generally. So what I'm doing here is I'm working one eye. Now, if you're new to a medium or if you're new to a subject, I suggest working both eyes at the same time. So you apply one colour to one eye, then you apply the same colour to the other eye. You might have to shift it in lights or darks. You might have to shift depending if the other eye is in highlights or if it's in shadow. But generally, if you're new to a medium or new to a subject, I do recommend working both eyes together. There's nothing worse than finishing one eye, going over to do the other eye, and then forgetting which colours you used, or in which direction the strokes were made, or yeah, you get the drift. It's just, it can be a little bit frustrating. So new to the medium or subject, work both eyes together. Should have just said that right from the beginning. So going around with the darks now, just getting some darks in there. And as you can see, I did leave the area where the highlight is, but it has got colour in it. So don't just leave a highlight white. I don't like to use white on its own. I don't like to use black on its own, because they can both look very flat. All colours are reflective in nature, so make sure you've got some of the surrounding colours. If you've got, I don't know, a tiger in a jungle, then make sure you get some of those jungle colours into the subject as well, and it just gels the two together. So what I did here is I used some colours from the background, which are predominantly lilacs and dusty pinks, and I've included those in the highlights as well, and it just pulls the subject and the background together, makes for a more harmonious painting. So going in with the darks again, and just by going in with a few darks around the eye, it fixes that eye, it puts it in situ. It's really hard to describe. It just makes it feel as though it should be there, as opposed to an eye and then a space, or just a blank colour, or just a block of colour, and then the fur. Now I don't go into doing the fur around the eye in this video. If you want to see that's in the full length video. As I said, I will pop it in the description below for you to take a look at, should you wish. And then if you don't want to watch the eye bit, you could always fast forward through the eye process in the long length video. So that pencil hasn't been sharpened yet, but generally when I sharpen pastel pencils, I use a knife to remove the wood that surrounds the pigment, and then I just sand the pigment to a sharp point on a piece of fine sandpaper. And if you continually turn your pencil in your hand as you're working, the tip of the pastel will stay sharper for longer. So going in with the pupil there, as you can see, I've put a highlight running through the pupil as well, just to break it up a little bit. These eyes that I've created here are nothing like the eyes in the reference images that I used. I like to make the eyes my own, still looking in the same direction, but altering colours, hues and contrast. So there you have it, how I create realistic looking eyes in pastel. Nice quick video for you. That's the cover of the big video that you'd be looking for if you want to check that out. I will pop it in the description below. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Stay creative everybody, and I will see you all soon. Take care and bye for now.